What's up, Bills Mafia? Rob here with you on a spooky Tuesday night after a Bills win. Excited to do a little intentional grounding. Rolling solo today. Stoles will be back next week. At least we hope so. And plenty to talk about as the Bills assert themselves as one of the top teams in the NFL with a dominant performance over the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, I've been on this team in and out throughout the year. We started the season, Sterls and I, talking about expectations for this group. We started the season with conversations about how important Josh Allen was going to be and how much was going to be on his shoulders this year, about if the defense could look the same, if Keon Coleman could contribute enough to make a wide receiver room look full. We started the season with a whole lot of questions. And I think here at almost the midway point of the season, it's important to take a step back and look at how much this Bills team has accomplished over the first 8 weeks. Years like this, I mean, I used to go to the Bills bar, and the first time the Bills had a winning season, somebody was like, "Man, you're so happy." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's the first time I had more good Sundays than bad Sundays in a fall in a long time." And I don't think we should lose sight of how incredible it's been to be a Bills fan over these last couple of years. But of course, it's not measured by that. It's measured by banners, right? I mean, that's where we're at now, because this is what we've come to expect from the Bills year in and year out, is really honestly domination. And that's what they did on Sunday. I think they asserted themselves once again as one of the top teams in the NFL. I think that was a little bit in question all the way back. If you go all the way back to the start of the season, it was a Dolphins team that hadn't lost 2 yet, so it was probably more formidable. But when you played two good teams, you lost to them. And so I think this team still has more to prove, but to go into a tough environment and into tough weather conditions against a team that's pretty good, put it on Atlanta the week before, it was an impressive performance. The first thing I want to talk about is the coaching staff, because me and everybody else was all over them for the way they game planned that Tennessee game. They made the adjustments they needed to make and ended up getting the Bills a victory. But against the better team, if you had started that slow, it kind of harkened back to a Baltimore type start. And we rightfully gave them a hard time for that. I think Sunday, conversely, was what this team can look like and what this coaching staff can look like when everything goes right. And when we've talked about Brady or Babich or McDermott and been hard on them, one of the things that I've been hardest on McDermott about is he's only good when the plan goes according to plan. And when it doesn't go according to plan, he struggles making quick decisions in the moment. He lets the moment get to him a little bit. Well, Sunday was an example of the plan going according to plan. And it was a problem the week before, and I think those two young coordinators adjusted and put out really good game plans for this game on Sunday versus the Seattle Seahawks. The team responded well as well. If we were to get into specifics, we can start with the defense and say, I think the only player that didn't play great maybe was Dorian Williams. Taylor Rapp, it's funny because when you watch Taylor Rapp, there's good and bad that comes with him being so aggressive. And so I felt like there were a couple plays that he missed because he was too aggressive. But overall, I felt like the defense played incredible. They really did. The final score was 31-10, and it wasn't that close. Now you got some help along the way. right? With the Seahawks making a mistake, snap going over the head, stepping on a foot on the goal line, and we take a little bit of luck with it. But without the Bills being as dominant as they are, excuse me, without the Bills being as dominant as they are and making the Seahawks feel like they had to press, you wonder how many of those mistakes would have gotten made. If they didn't feel like they had to go for it on fourth down there to keep up with the Bills. Like, that is part of it. Because otherwise they're trotting the field goal team out there and kicking a field goal, right? But you've got this machine on the other side of the ball, and you're saying, just like we say and have said about Kansas City for a lot of years, you can't kick field goals against this team. When you're down that close, you got to score touchdowns. I think the Seahawks were saying the same thing about the Bills. Like, if we're going to beat Buffalo, we need to go for it. And, you force them into mistakes sometimes that way. So it's not just about the Seahawks self-made mistakes, but why were they taking those chances? And I think it was a full team performance that made them take those chances. They were missing DK Metcalf, which undoubtedly makes your job easier as a defense for the Bills. I don't think there's anybody. I like Jackson Smith and Jigba a lot, but I don't think you hesitate for him to go one-on-one with any of your corners. So whether it's Rasul Douglas or Christian Benford or Taron Johnson, whoever their matchup was, I think you felt fine. And that makes it easier to call the defense when you have kind of those interchangeable parts. And they looked like it. I mean, it was a dominant showing. Hats off to Groot. I think it was this podcast, might have been the other one that Sturls and I do together, but there were some Groot haters in the chat, man. There really were. And I want to, I hope they show themselves, man, because he has played so well. And especially being the focus of attention on that defensive line, God, he's been impressive. And a time's going to come where you got to pay him, and I hope they do. I really do. It's going to be hard because I don't know if he's going to live up to the big payday standards. And so if he does sign a contract that makes him one of the top paid defensive ends in the league, I feel like Buffalo Bills fans are going to be after him a little bit. But he's played so well, and it's setting the edge in the run. It's knocking passes down. It's getting pressure on the quarterback, and it's taking on double teams. I think he's done it all really well. So Groot was really impressive for me. I was really worried about them not having Terrell Bernard today, this weekend, I should say. He is such a game changer on that side of the ball, and particularly against this offense, you felt like it was a tough game for him to miss. But hats off to Balin Spector. I mean, there was never a moment that defense didn't look like they knew exactly what they were doing. And we've talked a lot about Micah and Jordan leaving and what that means for, making sure everybody's lined up the right way and that your run fits are right and all that kind of stuff. And that attention to detail, I mean, it requires a leader and a leader that's calling that defense. And it's not easy to be thrust into that role from off the bench. And so I just wanted to give a little credit to Balin Spector. Of course, he had all week to prepare for it, so he knew it was coming, but to step up and meet the moment. Listen, he wasn't a game changer. He didn't play great, but the fact that there was never a moment that you felt like that defense was like, hey, what are we doing here? I think speaks to how well he did in stepping up and filling that role of the green dot, the guy who calls the defense for the Bills. And then I thought, as a unit, that bend but don't break style, we've watched it for the past 7 years. And it feels like this defense is particularly built in a way that McDermott likes his defenses to be built. And you would hope so after 7 years. But I say that to say, if the coaching staff is comfortable, let me go back. it's the coaching staff's job to put guys in a situation where they feel comfortable and can make plays. So you want to call your defense in a way that fits your guys. And the fact that I think this team and how it's constructed fits so well the way that McDermott and Babich want to call this defense. Um, it's the kind of thing that when you watch it, that's why all these commentators are now saying, these Bills are Super Bowl contenders. I think there's a real nice fitting of puzzle pieces there. Man, I was watching that Monday night football game and the Sunday night one for that matter. And there is no team in the NFL that scares me as a Bills fan. Not one. And you watch a team like the Steelers, and I'm hesitating to say this because I don't want to take shots at them necessarily. That's a 6-2 Steelers team. And I feel like the Bills are a whole head and shoulders better than them. You got questions at quarterback. I don't think their defense, I think their defense is really good. I don't think it's like an elite level defense. And so, as you go through the AFC contenders, Houston just lost Stephon Diggs, which, I feel for him. I understand if you're a little bit salty from the breakup. I'm not. He did choose it, so that was up to him. No doubt about it. But it doesn't mean I'm wishing harm upon anybody. So that's tough. And I hope he gets well soon. But so, Texans lose Diggs. Nico Collins been out for a few weeks. He, of course, will be back. But CJ Stroud hasn't played the best. I mean, Texans haven't quite, looked like a powerhouse. Ravens lose to the Jameis Winston-led Browns. Again, same thing as the Steelers. I feel like they've got a real solid defense. I don't feel like it's elite. I don't feel like it's, going to lead you to a Super Bowl type defense. And so I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Henry and Lamar Jackson to score a lot of points, which is why they go get a guy like Deontay Johnson today, who I think fits great into that offense and will certainly help them out. But that's probably the scariest team in the AFC. We haven't even gotten to the Chiefs yet. I don't know. I mean, drop it in the comments if you think I'm off base here. But I'm not afraid of playing the Chiefs. And yes, there's a witch and a wizard there, and they will always haunt you until you slay them. I get it. But, I'm just not overwhelmed by any team in the NFL right now. And you flip over to the NFC side. I mean, the Commanders have been playing great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not afraid to face that team. San Francisco's beat up. I don't think they're going to get healthy, and back to a dominant stance at all this year. With losing Ayuk for the year. I mean, you thought at some point maybe they would get healthy, but I don't think they will. And Seattle, you just gave the business to. Detroit is great, but again, it's not a team I'm afraid of. So I say all that to say I find myself as much as any year over the last 4 where the Bills have really been in contention, saying, why not us? I mean, I 100% believe that. And Sterls pushed me for a record prediction after the Bills lost a couple games. And I gave him a 14-3 number. He goes, wow. And I'm like, they might not actually get to 14, but I feel like this team is really good. And I feel like they've coalesced a little bit here. Now, you don't want to start playing your best ball in October, no doubt about it. But, I find it hard to see people getting in the way of this team. And as I go down what's left of the schedule, everybody's saying the AFC East is already over. I am not saying that. I think you need to beat the Dolphins this week before you can really talk about the division kind of being wrapped up. But remember, you had I think the Dolphins had a 3-game lead on you with what 5 games left last year, and you came all the way back. So let's not count any chickens. But you've got a sizable lead in the division, and your 2 hardest division games are behind you, with away games in New York and Miami. And so I really think you got to take care of the Dolphins this week, in the sense that if you do, you kind of put a stranglehold on it for good. But this is, and we said it before we went into the Titans game, Sturls and I, this is the take care of business portion of your schedule. Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts. You really got to take care of business there. And if you get through there, then you go Chiefs, Niners, Rams, Lions. And that's a harder part of the schedule. And really, you want to go into that part of the schedule 8-2. And that's how you can talk about maybe a number 1 seed. Somebody has to beat the Chiefs. I mean, good Lord. It does not feel like they're all that good, right? I mean, God, the Raiders almost had them on the ropes this past weekend. And so I think when you look at the AFC overall, the Ravens are scary, but there's no promise they even win that division. The way the playoff seeding falls right now, they're in a wild card spot because the Steelers are leading that division. So, they've got 3 losses already. Houston's got 2. Houston, I mean, I'm going to count on Houston actually to get a couple of wins, but they got a tough schedule. Like, every time I pull up somebody's schedule, I'm like, all right, who do they play that's any good? I'm like, oh, there's Houston, which means that Houston has a ton of tough games. Let's see. They're at the Jets on Thursday night this week, and then versus the Lions, at the Cowboys, versus the Titans, at the Jaguars, versus the Dolphins, at the Chiefs, versus the Ravens, at the Titans. So there's 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 tough games in there for Houston. Their division, of course, helps as well. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see a team in the AFC that's overly frightening, or in the NFL for that matter. I mean, I think Detroit is as close as you can get for a team that would make me have any pause about what the Bills can accomplish here. And so, I think it's important that they get through this take care of the business portion of the schedule, actually taking care of business. We said, 3-1's okay, but you really want to go 4-0 through this stretch before you play Kansas City. And that way, when you play Kansas City, you can talk about it being for the 1 seed. You hoped that Kansas City would find another loss in there, which they haven't yet. But to me, I think they will. They have a pretty easy schedule, but they'll slip somewhere along the way. So if you can put a loss on them, you can put that 1 conversation back on the table. If you lose to the Chiefs, I think the 1 seed's pretty much a goner. Because that half game, I think you could finish with the same record as the Chiefs, but they're going to have the tiebreaker. And then you're kind of done. And so, if you're talking about making it to the 1 seed, I mean, it's a big 3 weeks here. It really is. You got to take care of the business against the Dolphins and wrap up the division. You got to make sure that you take care of the Colts, who are, especially with Joe Flacco announced as their starting quarterback, a playoff-worthy team. And you cannot fall to a trap game there. I mean, you just can't. And so you got to make sure you take care of the Colts, and then you go into that Chiefs matchup with eyes on the 1 seed. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball. Just as impressive, I thought, as the defensive side of the ball. Joe Brady, I asked to see a little bit of evolution from him, and I think we've seen from him and Josh evolution in regression a little bit, where what I mean by that is to say that they simplified it a little bit. There were a lot of quick throws from Josh where you're not necessarily telling him to read through a whole bunch of options. And therefore, it's those people who wear the black t-shirts who say like, oh, if that's the only thing in my closet, it's not a decision that I have to make every morning. I just put on the black t-shirt and go. And I think it was Steve Jobs who said, like, simplify your life by making that not a decision that you have to make every day. And I think that's what they did for Josh a little bit here. There were 3 or 4 screen passes. There were a couple of fade routes. I heard the one that Coleman actually came down with in the end zone was actually a check from Josh. It was supposed to be a run play, and everybody else, all 9 other guys, were thinking run play, and Josh just stepped back and put it up to Keon Coleman. And I think if Keon is going to continue to win like that, I'm okay with you throwing balls like that, because the kid has really showed up. He has really taken a step in the direction of 50-50 balls aren't really 50-50 anymore. And if he's going to win like that on the outside, good luck. I mean, good luck. And I'm not a big fan of those. I'm not a big fan of fade routes. I just think it's too low of a percentage. But if you've got a world-class quarterback and you've got a guy who makes those not 50-50, but really more 60-40, you're upping your percentage in a good way there. But that wasn't the only thing Keon did on the day that was really impressive. I thought he was the best Bill on the field. Period. He blocked. He ran incredible routes. At times looked very athletic. Knew where he was supposed to be and when. Good communication, especially like, Josh changing that play. That's something that you normally do with a receiver that you've had around for a lot of years. And it's a look or a hand signal or something like that to let them know, like, hey, we're going, you and me. It's why Aaron Rodgers wanted Devontae Adams back. You know what I mean? Like, they have that communication. To have that with a rookie in the first half of the season, that's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. And it says a lot about Keon Coleman and how well he knows the offense, how well he's gotten to know Josh. So even on a communication level, I thought he was fantastic. I really do think he was the best Bill on the field. And that, James Cook went for 100 yards. Let me pull up the stats here. James Cook went for 100 yards. You know what I mean? Like, Josh Allen went for almost 300 and a couple touchdowns. And I still think Keon Coleman was the best player on the field. Yeah, Cook went for 111. Shakir went for 107. Shakir had more receiving yards. You know what I mean? And I still think Keon was the best player on the field. But you can go a lot of ways with that, because I thought the Bills played great ball on Sunday. We have pointed it out the past couple of weeks, but I'm not going to let a week go by without saying it again. The Bills' offensive line is playing phenomenal football. I mean, it is one of the, I think, unsung groups that has really dominated in the league this year. There was stories from Eric Wood and Chris Brown. I heard it on WGR, but it's made its way around virally as well, that, you're running an inside zone scheme. And if you don't know the way that works, all the offensive linemen slant one direction. And the idea is you get everybody moving. And as everybody moves, the running back will find in there a hole to put his foot in the ground and go through the hole, because they can't keep their gap integrity as the offensive line is slanting one direction. They'll miss a gap somewhere. And that's what the Broncos were so good at for all those years with Terrell Davis and Mike Anderson and Olandis Gary and on and on and on. That was the scheme that they ran. And in that, you you never know exactly what hole you're going to hit as a running back because you have to wait and see what opens up as the offensive linemen move. Unless you're the Bills' offensive line on Sunday, who apparently were turning around to James Cook in the huddle and saying, hey, the hole's going to be right off my butt. It's going to be right here. I promise you. It's going to be, whatever, A gap, B gap, C gap. Like that's the one that you're going to want to hit. And on the touchdown run specifically, the story has gotten around that they said that to James and we're right on. And that's dominant offensive line. Like that is smart, tough, physical offensive line play to on an inside zone say like the hole's going to be right here. We're all going to win our matchups and you're going to run right through there for a touchdown. That's impressive. And I miss Mitch Morris. I'm a Mitch Morris fan. I think this line might even be better if Mitch Morris was center and McGovern was playing guard as they were last year. But they are playing some great football right now. I think Spencer Brown has stepped up to, one of the top right tackles in the league. I think Osiris Torrance, who I was worried about in the offseason, has gotten back to the level he was at last year. And I was concerned about that to start with. I think Edwards has played real well. And he was the one I was most concerned about. I thought both your guard positions were trouble. And Deion Dawkins he deserves an All-Pro. He really does. And I don't know if he'll ever get one, but the dude has been playing at an incredible level for now a couple of years. McGovern at center has played great, and I think it goes underrated how much is on his shoulders. Just like we were talking about Balin Spector with the green dot, the amount of communication you have to have from the center position to make sure the calls are right, line sliding the right way, all that kind of stuff. It's an important position. So I know early in the year, if you looked at his grades, they might not have been the best, but I think he has played pretty good football, and the fact that he has led that unit has meant a lot to the team. And what does that all say about the Bills, right? For in 2020 and 21, it was an attack offense. It was a down the field offense, and it was really aggressive. And you almost didn't want them running the ball unless it was Josh Allen. And they have, for the couple of years since, tried to change that. And boy, have they ever. I mean, this team with this offensive line, this running game, whether it's Cook, who looked way more physical on Sunday than he has all year, and maybe because he's been watching Ray Davis out physical him at the running back position, but then you put Ray Davis in and he can run downhill. And I like Ty Johnson too. So your running game's there. And then you can throw some quick hitters to Shakir and Cooper and Coleman. And whether it's a slant or, a screen pass or a tunnel screen or whatever, there was 3 or 4 of those get the ball in the hands of your guy moments on Sunday. And then the threat is still there for him to go down the field. And as much we gave Dawson Knox some heat on this podcast. It's a big paycheck that you're paying a second tight end there, but a couple big catches on Sunday. And we had talked about, with all the other threats on this offense, the last guy they should be thinking of is Dawson Knox. And if Josh trusts Dawson as much as we think he does, then that should be a huge advantage for the Bills. And you saw it a couple times on Sunday where it looked like the Seattle defense just forgot Dawson Knox was on the field and he had 2 catches for 50 yards. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of impact that you need from him. Is it worth $9 million? I don't know. But that's not a problem that we have to worry about for the rest of this season. And so while you have that advantage of a quality tight end who can make plays, who your quarterback trusts, I mean, he's going to be the last. He's going to be the fifth of five guys who are eligible to catch a pass that anybody is concerned about. That's it. And so, yeah, I need him to go 2 for 50. I need him to go 3 for 60. I need him to go, one catch for 70 yards and a touchdown. That's what I need out of Dawson Knox, because it's where you can get that chunk that you might have trouble getting from one of these guys that they're more focused on as the year goes on. So I think it goes back to the biggest takeaway for me on the offensive side of the ball is when Josh plays simple football, when he takes what the defense gives him, simplifies, hits his checkdowns. There is enough talent on this team, despite everything that got said in the offseason. And with the trade of Amari Cooper, there is enough talent on this team that if he just takes what a defense gives him, man, this Bills offense is just going to crush people. Just going to crush people. He does not have to be incredible. And then every once in a while, maybe you ask him to put on the cape and be incredible. But there was, through that 2-loss stretch that the Bills had, Sterles and I talked about, it seemed like he was taking less of the short stuff, the easy stuff. When he takes that stuff, this offense looks unstoppable. And to me, that's the Dolphin game, that's the Jaguar game, and then the Seattle game. When Josh plays just smarter than the defense, I'm going to take what you give me. I know exactly what the open thing is here, and I'm going to hit it, and we are going to march down the field. He's going to win an MVP like that. Just flat out. Real simple. He's going to win an MVP if he does that. If he plays like he played on it wasn't even an overwhelming stat line. I saw what's his name? WGR morning host, Joe. He tweeted out Tyrod's stat line from the last time the Bills were in Seattle and said, "Would you take this on Sunday from Josh Allen?" And I thought to myself, no, but not because it's not a good stat line, just because I think Josh can do better than that. And it turned out their stat lines ended up being incredibly similar. Tyrod from years ago and Allen on Sunday. 24 of 34, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. If he does that, just that, the rest of the year, and this Bills team wins 13 or 14 games, he's going to win the MVP. And I know Bills fans feel scorned a little bit because you feel like he's maybe earned one or two others and they didn't get given to him. And I think if we're being honest about that, I think what that has to do with is his late season performances. And I don't mean that they're bad. I mean that the Bills most years have won so many games that he hasn't had to be great in December up until this last year. And the weather kind of catches up with him. I think Buffalo being Buffalo hurts him. I think back to a Falcons game where it was snowing and he ran for 70 yards or something like that. But it felt like that was our only offense on the day. It was just hard to throw the ball. The Carolina game comes to mind for that too. I think these late season games in cold weather, his stats kind of trail off and everybody goes, "Oh, look at this shiny object over here." And it makes it hard on him to finish an MVP campaign like that. But then if you look at his overall numbers, he's the only guy that did this, the only quarterback to ever do that. The only guy over 40 touchdowns scored. And so, yes, I feel like he has earned it more than once, but it just kind of, the idea of it got taken away a little bit. You know what I mean? Where started thinking about some other guy at the end of the year and he ends up winning it, whether it's Lamar or Aaron Rodgers or whoever. I feel like that's why he's missed a couple of opportunities. But if Josh plays the way he played on Sunday, taking the easy throws, those are throws that you can make in December and January and February, hopefully. Those are throws that you can make in bad weather. And So if he keeps just taking the profit, man, just take the easy stuff. You can't go broke taking a profit. And if he does that, I think he'll win an MVP this year because the talk all offseason was about how he had no weapons, and I don't think that was necessarily true, but that narrative is going to help him in the MVP race. So all said, an incredible day for your Bills on Sunday. Looking forward, it's Dolphin week, man. Don't let that moment go. You know what I mean? Don't if I'm McDermott in that locker room, screw the records, right? They haven't had their quarterback. They've been beat up all year. Tua's back now, and they're going to come in hungry, needing this game. Because if they can get to 3-5, if you looked at their schedule, they can win a couple games here, right? And so if you're McDermott, you got to go in the locker room and say, just screw the records, man. It's the freaking Dolphins. We need to go out there and own them. That is what we do. And we need to go handle business. They're at Buffalo. This is the Dolphins. They're at Buffalo, at LA, at the Rams, versus the Raiders and versus the Patriots. If you let them get off the mat here, they could get above 500 pretty easy. I think the Rams probably the toughest game there. And then home games versus the Raiders and Patriots. So don't let them get off the mat. Don't let them get up. And I think that's really got to be the messaging. It gets chippy with the Jets. And Deion talked about it. Dawkins talked about it before that Monday night game. I don't know why it gets chippier with the Jets than it does with the Dolphins, but it does get chippy with the Jets. I want you to bring that heat to the Dolphins too. And I know our record against them is good over the last few years. But I'm challenging the guys a little bit if I'm McDermott. You know what I mean? Like I want to put a stranglehold on this division and just set that Dolphin team back far enough that I feel like the division's over and that their season might be over too. Don't let them get off the mat. If you let them get to 3-5 and their next 3 games are Rams, Raiders, Patriots, you don't want that. Don't let them get healthy. You know what I mean? As far as the game plan goes, they had such a good game plan going into the first Miami game. And you hesitate to roll the same exact game plan out there 2 times in a row, but it obviously won't be exactly the same, but a similar type game plan out there 2 games in a row. But I think you're okay with them running the ball, which is what you did to them last time. Achane still had a great game the last time these 2 teams played because you were playing the pass and you were watching them run the ball. And if you want to go in with that same kind of mindset of we're going to make sure Tua doesn't get right, we're going to make sure Tyreek doesn't get right, we're going to make sure Waddle doesn't get right. And if, Achane goes off, then Achane goes off. I don't even know if he's still playing. Regardless, if they run the ball, they run the ball. I don't necessarily hate that game plan. I feel like that's how this Bills defense is built, back to front like that. So I think you're going to see a similar game plan defensively to what you saw before. And listen, the Bills got up so big, so quick that I don't think you saw the whole offensive game plan against the Dolphins the first time around. So you'll probably see recycled portions of that as well. I'm not afraid of their corners. I think they got an okay defensive line. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bills go in there with a game plan with. What's so fun about this Bills offense is it's a whole lot more about the Bills offense than it is about whoever they're playing. And I feel like I end up there every week. If this Bills offense asserts itself, doesn't matter what the defense is. Doesn't matter who the defense is. Doesn't matter who's on the other side. I mean, they can whoop anybody the way that they whoop Seattle on Sunday if they play ball the right way. And so, when you're in it and you're breaking down specific matchups, and then you just kind of sit back and say, they just got to be them. They just got to not make mistakes. It's really the big thing for this Bills offense. And it's why Josh not throwing an interception to this point had been so important. Because as long as that team doesn't make mistakes, I just don't think there's anybody who can beat them. I really don't. To that end, I'm kind of glad the interception streak ended in an inconsequential way. It felt consequential at the time, no doubt. But now looking back at it in a 31-10 game, kind of glad the interception thing ended there, so it's not in his head. Because I don't want him not taking chances. That's part of what he does. I still want him taking chances here and there. But, if they play mistake-free football, that offense can trounce anybody. And then Josh, I mean, 2 hands on the ball, dog. Two hands on the ball. Can't have you kicking it out of your own hand. Now it went for a first down. So if you want to, put a drop kick in to the playbook, maybe that's something that you consult Brady and McDermott about before you just go on the field and do. But hold on to that football for me, big dog. Appreciate you. So that's it, man. That is our podcast for tonight. Like I said, I feel great about where the Buffalo Bills are. And I know we're all a little bit cynical because as we go through these years, we know how the other ones have ended. And we focus so much on the ending that it is what matters, right? Totally agree with that. But don't forget how fun it is as we go through this, right? I mean, for a guy who grew up tortured by Tom Brady and in quarterback purgatory and every year having more bad Sundays than good Sundays throughout the season, this is fun. This is fun, man. So let's go beat the Dolphins and ruin some little kid's life in Miami. And in 20 years, he'll be sitting in front of a podcast screen just like this saying, Josh Allen knows damn Buffalo Bills. And that's fine because we should hate each other because that's what sports is all about. So let's go make some enemies, man. Let's go make some enemies and really put your foot down on this division by beating the Dolphins and beating them handily on Sunday. Let's hope they do that. Sterl's hopefully back next week. Of course, we've got your NFL pregame show. That goes on Sunday mornings, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain, on many of these same channels. Give us a like, follow, and subscribe. Thoughts out to Sterls. Love you, big dog. He'll be back hopefully on Sunday. And peace, y'all. Go Bills.